This is called Struggling for Repose. When I am restored and rest in Thee, give me summer weather in my heart. From the Valley of Vision. My rainfly stretched taut under a cypress tree. I washed down a lovely dinner of chicken ramen with a piping hot cup of lemon Gatorade. The sun slid behind the ridgeline. The light was a gauzy gray in that steep canyon. I sat beside the clear-running south fork of the Sauk River, journaling and nursing the hot lemon drink while no-see-ums chewed away at my exposed flesh. Small stones, dislodged by the cold current, thumped along underwater as they found new resting places. Swallows and bats patrolled the banks, flitting for insects. I wrote in my journal, I feel at rest here. With the dull pain of hips bruised from carrying the weight of my pack and feet sore from new boots, I sat totally and eternally at rest. The next morning, I climbed the Weeden Creek Trail to Gothic Basin. The steep, rocky trail traverses the densely wooded north-facing canyon wall. Towards the top of the canyon, the trail disappeared under a stubborn late summer snowbank stretching vertically for hundreds of yards, sculpted by wind and sun to form pock-marked caves. Cold air trapped in the caves prickled my skin. A mile or so further, I came across another steep snowfield with an underlying ice sheet. I decided to find a flat spot of ground to spend the night. I could see the glaciered valleys on the high mountains across the canyon. Bare trees and scoured trunks sighed in the gentle breeze. Heather bloomed a soft pink, like little orbs of roe all along the trail. Back down the trail a few yards, I found a good place to make camp, with a water source about 75 yards further down the trail. Normally, I would never set my camp so close to the trail, but on this steep ascent, the choices were rather limited. Weather moved in, and the next morning, clouds shrouded the entire valley. Visibility was reduced to about 50 yards. I decided to wait out the weather before finding a way across that upper snowfield and finishing out at Foggy Lake in Gothic Basin. Just off the trail, I found a spider web suspended under an evergreen bough. Moisture from the dense fog caused water droplets to collect like little diamonds along the strands. The web's circular and woven structure, adorned with these delicate jewels of moisture, reminded me of a dream catcher. It was beautiful. I took several pictures with the camera on my phone. Feeling a surge of joy rise from a place deep in me, I put the phone in my pocket and jogged 3 steps on that wet grass back toward camp. It's what I feel when I hear the car pull up in my driveway and know it is my grandchildren coming to visit. With the third giddy step, my right foot slipped, contorting under me, heel pointing downward, body facing cross-hill, twisting violently to my right. I slammed hard to the ground, and I heard a snap and felt an explosion of heat on the outside of my right leg, just where the top of my boot might have been had I been wearing them instead of my camp sandals. Pain shot up my leg as I wiggled my toes and shook my foot back and forth, causing me to gasp. I crawled hands and knees back to camp. Sitting on a rock and feeling nauseous, I broke out into a cold sweat. I peeled off my outer layers, put my head between my knees, and slowed down my breathing. The burning continued on my leg, like someone was pouring a warm, fizzing liquid on my bare skin, letting it run down into my sock. So I checked to see if there was any blood. No. I crawled under my shelter to catch my breath, The pain was not too bad until I moved my leg. I double-checked my phone for reception, but nothing had changed since the day before. I was alone with no way to contact anyone. My mind worked all of my options. Is it really broken? Or maybe it's just a high ankle sprain. How can I tell? Well, water was a priority before my leg swelled up, and I couldn't put any weight on it at all, so crawling on all fours, I carefully kept my right foot several inches above the ground. My trekking pole would be my crutch. Standing, I put a little weight on it, not too bad. I took a step. It's uncomfortable, but I can do this. Stepping awkwardly on an uneven part of the ground, pain ripped up my leg and shot out my head like electricity. This was going to be a long walk. An hour later, I arrived back in camp and dropped my dromedary to the ground. I was breathless from the hellish climb down the trail to water. I crawled onto my thermarest, pulled my sleeping bag over my back, and tried to calm my body down. Mosquitoes circled my face like miniature buzzards over carrion. My leg throbbed with every beat of my heart, so I elevated it. Using my mental checklist, I considered water, food, clothing, and timelines of possible rescue. My wife would call my friend who knew where I was when I was 24 hours late. I had enough food to last 4 or 5 days. I could get to water even though it would be very painful. I was camped on a popular trail. Someone was likely to come walking by before I would even be missed at home. It was a cold night, and I slept carefully, never very far from consciousness. The most painful moment I felt since the accident was crawling out in the morning and standing up to relieve myself. My entire lower leg had swollen now. Breakfast and coffee tasted good, though. The weather improved, and the sun burned off the fog that had clung to the valley for almost 24 hours. I relaxed in the sunshine and waited. The face buzzards swirled around me as I tried to read a book, and I waited. Waiting always slows time. Sometime early in the afternoon, I saw movement out of my left eye. My hand reached for my bear spray. I had not kept my camp as clean as I might normally have kept it, but it wasn't a bear. It was a hiker. I yelled for him to come over to my camp, and he froze. He stooped down to get a better view of me lying under my low-slung rainfly, and he walked slowly towards me. "I've hurt my leg," I said. And then he squatted at the edge of my shelter. He had a .40 caliber Glock strapped to his waist. He said he was just enjoying a day off and on a day hike. He was a volunteer for search and rescue, and he had a radio. Boris spoke with a pronounced accent that sounded German, but he said he was from the Netherlands. An hour later, the Snohomish County search and rescue helicopter circled overhead. Boris packed up my gear. The rescuers rappelled down from above the treetops. The first one came to me, put his hand on my shoulder, and said in a very kind voice, "Everything's going to be okay now. We'll take good care of you and get you out of here." Well, my chin began to quiver, and my eyes brimmed full with tears. They strapped me onto a litter board, wrapped me in a bright red fiberglass shroud, and grunted heavily as the 3 of them carried me 20 yards up to the evacuation area where the chopper hovered some 200 feet above. I was helpless as I was being helped. The cable attached to my litter grew taut, and up into the blue sky I went as treetops glided by in my peripheral vision. I moved steadily towards the blades of the chopper with my hands strapped down by my side. I remember thinking, this should be fun, but it was extremely unnerving, like being on an amusement ride when you change your mind and want off. Well, there was no getting off. They wouldn't have heard me or let me off, even if I had asked. They were bent on rescuing me. Turns out I broke my fibula. What surprised me in this experience was that I desperately wanted the benefits of being rescued, but found it very difficult to submit to the process of that rescue. Submitting and relinquishing, though, was the only way out. Lots of people are like me, and we would do well to find our rest in the rescuer. Like children who fight sleep, we fight relinquishing our lives over to the care and control of the only one who can give us the help we need. I have a stubborn and restless soul, and yet I have been designed to cooperate with the one who made me. After all, the first man, Adam, was created to walk and work with God in creation. And we've been struggling to get back into that garden ever since.